Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, September 18th, 2025. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. I'm Dan Rubin, and guess what? This podcast covers the national champions, who do happen to be ranked number one, as I've been saying. Good to be king. Also good to have these guys here. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, Mark Porter, the Grand Poobah. It's an off week, but wouldn't you know, we are not off. We have plenty of stuff to talk about. We're going to go general to specific here. Ohio State has made, 4 new offers in the class of 2026. I guess the 3-game film rule is kicking in nationally, and we're getting some interest there. But first, William, you won't be enjoying this, but your favorite thing about your job, as you've told me, is the transfer portal. And hopefully the transfer portal on major holidays. You'd like to cover it. And you've told me that. Now it seems like since you're boogieing, they've made it easier on our future. Could you please bring us up to speed on what they're doing with the transfer portal? It seems it's a never-ending dramatic experience, but they have chopped it up a little bit. Ryan Day probably won't be happy, but your thoughts, if you could explain to everybody what exactly the change is, and then where we go from there.
Well, the short answer is the NCAA, I'm not sure they know what they're doing with the transfer portal, at least to be exact. They have made one move, though, and that is, as you referred to, Dan, they have gotten rid of the spring transfer portal period. So it's gone now from 2 portal periods to 1. As you know, guys like me don't necessarily love covering those portal periods. I would much rather just cover what I've done for almost 40 years. That is the high school kids and their recruitments. So lo and behold, when I go to retire, there is an elimination of the transfer portal period. The spring one gone. And then we don't know exactly when the 1 transfer portal period remaining will be. They haven't outlined the exact dates. You know, would they move it later, a little bit later, keep it about the same? We don't know. Will they extend it a couple days? We don't know for sure. All we know is that there's just 1 portal period left. My hunch is that it's still going to be relatively similar, close to what has been the past winter portal period. That is sometime starting in December and going into January. That's my guess. But again, we don't know that for sure. One of the reasons I think it'll be similar is that I think overall they want players, kids that are transferring, to be able to get into their school as much as possible and start doing winter workouts and all that, and be able to go through spring practice with those teams. Now, that's just my thinking. We'll see. Maybe Mark has some different thinking on that. So we'll see what happens. But that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, Ryan Day didn't like it because the expectation here is that you'll be in the playoffs for most of the time there, and then they'll have the extended period for those in the playoffs, and that's puts them at a disadvantage. Mark, your thoughts on the rule, what you've heard from coaches, can you put everything in perspective for us from that side?
Yeah, there's 2 sides to this quarter. After spring, if that's eliminated, that's when a lot of kids knew where the depth chart was kind of be going to the fall, and you'd see a lot of kids defect. But for Ohio State, it was your last chance to fill a need. How many times did we take advantage of that portal, whether it was after the season or, after spring, to say, you know what, we're short a linebacker, we're short a lineman, and, it's time to dip back in. So, on one hand, you're like, great, our players can only escape one time. And if we could just lock them down around that time and make them feel warm and fuzzy, they won't leave, and then we're good for another year. There's that advantage, but there's also the disadvantage of, if we're going to go get someone, we got to get it right, and we got to get it right now. So, two double-edged sword. Again, Ohio State will probably be fine, whatever it is. But I don't like that if you're a playoff team that the whole world's doing free agency and you're more worried about winning a game that week rather than going over 200 free agents. So I'm sure that that's going to be addressed because the teams in the playoff are powerful and they have a lot of pull. And what those guys say means something, and more so maybe than the other 100 teams at that time. Those 12, are the decision makers, or have that type of oomph to their, I don't know, the buying power or the power they would have in negotiating. So,
one thing I think is in the Buckeyes' favor is that they've got the guy that can take over while the staff works on getting ready for the next opponent in the playoffs. They got Mark Pantoni and his staff, and it's a big staff, working behind the scenes on those transfer portal period guys. So, not everybody, and really nobody has anybody better than Mark Pantoni and his staff working on that stuff.
What strikes me here is this, and you guys kind of hit it, is that no matter what it is, Ohio State will figure it out because Mark Pantoni has shown he can do that. And the whole staff, really, I'm not giving all the credit to Mark. I mean, he does an incredible job, but they've done a great job. My thing is this really does promote tampering. We're just giving up on that, because if you tell Ohio State, hypothetically, or let's say Georgia, for example, which, when their schedule comes out, they have the playoff on the schedule because they expect to go there every year. If you tell them you have a small window to go after these players and everyone else is going to have a head start, they're going to go back and get a start before you. So Ohio State and Georgia, schools like that, they need to actually spend the whole season now, like they're not doing this already, by the way, evaluating other teams and just creating a list of like, there's a great looking sophomore at a school we can take him from, blah, blah, blah. So maybe the genie's out the bottle and they just figure they can't turn that back, and tampering is going just to be how it is now. But like Mark said, when you crank regulations on the top 12, they're not going to just give in and allow the bottom 250 to get an advantage on them. That doesn't make any sense. That never happens. So be fun to watch. I'm confident Ohio State will handle it beautifully. I am in heavy benefit of the doubt mode for them. They've given us no reason, except for that one experience last year, to be doubt them really in anything. So we shall see. All right. That is a story that will not go away. We will follow that as it goes. And I imagine Ryan Day was one of the people to come out publicly and not be in favor of it. So I imagine the press will come back to him for a comment now, and we'll go from there. Other recruiting information, William. Class of 2026. It is not put to bed. We've talked about this, how after 3 games of your senior years, the standard, put your film back together, send it out again, show that you've grown, progressed, matured, etc. And lo and behold, 4 new offers to class of 2026 prospects, Bill. Would you mind going through each one, possibly explaining a little bit about them, and maybe your thoughts on, Ohio State's position with them, a true desire, etc.?
Well, going back chronologically, at least to begin with, there's obviously Landry Breed out there. He was offered, I think, the first week of this month, September 6th or thereabouts. And then he, followed up with that visit to Ohio State last weekend. I'm going to go back on Landry Breed in a second. You've got Khmari Bing, a defensive back who is a Maryland commitment, who's been offered more recently. You got Jacob Curry, who was offered just a few days ago, a linebacker from Florida that is not committed at this point to anyone. He was a Northwestern commitment. And then you've got Jay Timmons, a Florida State commitment, who is a cornerback. Jay Timmons, interestingly enough, he is from Gibsonia, Pennsylvania. So, he's kind of in the Ohio State area, so to speak. But those are the 4 that have come up most recently, I think. Now going back, Landry Breed, he did visit Ohio State last weekend, and at this point, at least, he remains a North Carolina State commitment. And we'll see if that changes. Ohio State has wanted a fifth offensive lineman in the class. They're supposed to visit tomorrow, Adam Guthrie. And those are the two Ohioans that are committed elsewhere. Guthrie, of course, to Clemson, that Ohio State has had offers or has offers out to. So we'll see what happens with those two. If anything, I mean, it's not totally out of the question. They just stay with their commitments. So those two, if Ohio State can get one of them to flip, I think that'd be a very good thing. As Mark and I have talked about, we're both impressed with Landry Breed, and Guthrie, of course, he's a guy Ohio State offered early. I think Breed is one of the two most likely guys to end up at Ohio State from the four I've mentioned. The other one being Jacob Curry. Breed has visited Ohio State, and Curry will visit Ohio State. He is visiting for the Minnesota game. He's a linebacker out of Florida. So when you got two kids that are have or going to visit Ohio State, that gives you reason to think that there's a chance there, certainly. The other two, Khmari Bing, as I mentioned, he's a Maryland commitment. He hasn't said that he's going to visit Ohio State, but he hasn't said he's not either. And he is going to visit Alabama this weekend. So that tells you he is looking around at least a little bit. And then the other one that hasn't determined yet whether he will visit Ohio State or not, Jay Timmons, the Florida State commitment. I actually talked to him again last night, and he said he's just totally undecided right now on everything, as he put it. Will he unequivocally stay with his Florida State commitment? He seems pretty happy with it, but he said right now everything is undecided. Will he visit Ohio State? That's undecided. So we'll see what happens with him. But those are the four guys to keep in mind, and it's not coincidental, the positions: offensive line, cornerback, and linebacker. Those are positions we've talked about that they're looking to perhaps add a player to. And I might add that two names I'm keeping on the radar screen, and we talked about them on Tuesday. Mark had a lot about them. Talked about Jaden Williams from Massillon, yet another linebacker. Ohio State hasn't offered him a scholarship yet. And then Nick Lauder, the tight end from Lebanon. Ohio State hasn't offered them either one of those yet, but they're still on my radar screen.
Bing is an interesting prospect. I think we need to lose the we don't compete against Maryland vibe. That was a little bit of an early commitment. Also, he goes to St. Francis in Baltimore, which used to be Gilman. Now everyone's at St. Francis. That's the elite private school for football in Maryland. It is a factory. So the fact that he's from there and is visiting Alabama, I would not look down on the Maryland commitment. Keep in mind, Maryland's got Zion Ely committed too. It's different now. You can get the crown jewel from your area because of the $20.5 million. All right. Jay Timmons is going to be a challenge because though he is from Pennsylvania, like Bill mentioned, he's committed to Florida State, and his father is Lawrence Timmons, NFL player who played at Florida State. So there's a hook there. He does seem to be an emerging prospect, though. I wouldn't be surprised if his ranking in 24/7 goes up. Now let's get to Mark's wheelhouse. Adam Guthrie, we had the story earlier this week from Garrick about him getting a visit from certain important people on Ohio State staff. And we've talked about this. The season is not over once you commit because your team has to then go out there and play well. And Clemson, judging from their head football coach's use of the media and press conference performances, things aren't going that great at Clemson. So I'm not saying he's going to be hopping off a sinking ship, but we shall see. And, of course, Landry Breed is committed to NC State. That feels more like NC State trying to identify a gem for them that they could outbid us for and think maybe Landry isn't high on our depth chart. But certainly, like Bill said, there's a trend here. They are trying to lock down the state of Ohio when it comes to offensive linemen. That is clear. That is one of their pipelines here. Boy, Sean, I'll get into that. That would be ridiculous. I don't see that happening. All right. I digress there from the chat. Mark, take over here. Landry Breed and Adam Guthrie. And wouldn't you know, we will have Landry Breed highlights coming up. So let's do it like this, Mark. Why don't you do Adam Guthrie first and then just go right into your Landry Breed video?
Okay, so Adam Guthrie from Miami Trace, I compared him very favorably to Sam Greer from Archbishop Hoban, largely because they're both excellent basketball players. They're both extremely long, extremely prototypical for the NFL left tackle position. If you remember, Sam Greer was hurt for freshman year a little bit, sophomore year a little bit, and I think it stunted his development, playing basketball and whatnot. So I after sophomore year gave an edge to Guthrie, and in talking to a college offensive line coach too, I think their edge was Guthrie because he kind of had a little more strength or pop. I got to tell you, I saw Sam Greer in person lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to joke with Sam about this, but if I took him on the road to carnivals and fairs and festivals, and I set up a tent to say, let's see the largest man in the world pay me $5, Sam and I would probably make enough money he wouldn't need NIL, because he might be like, there are large humans. He's larger. Okay.
He's the Blind Side. You know the movie? The
Yeah.
Blind Side. If you were to do Blind Side 2 or Blind Side 2 Akron, or he could be in it. There are certain guys you see in person, and I've been fortunate enough that I've covered high school through the pros. That's what an NFL left tackle looks like. I'm in no way saying Sam Greer is going to play in the NFL. I would definitely bet on it, though.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, there's some guys you see in person at a high school game, and you're like, oh my, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm impressed with Sam Greer. I stand next to Landry Breed and say, oh my gosh, these guys are legitimate, large human beings. But in a group of large human beings, sometimes there are guys that are just larger. I saw Calais Campbell is playing for 18 years in the NFL. It's because he's one of the largest, most athletic defensive linemen ever known to mankind. And I think that's the kind of cloth that Sam Greer is cut from. He really has, in the weight room, his legs, they're like tree trunks now. The body and the shoulders are all filling out. And my Lord, he is definitely a little cut different than everybody else. So if you wanted to say, who's progressing from 2 years ago and making progress, Sam Greer has come a long way. Now, Adam Guthrie is not far off. I saw Adam Guthrie at his pro day, and I didn't walk away going, I want to take Adam Guthrie on the road to do the biggest man in the world contest. But I do say that with Sam Greer. So that gives you an indication of my impressions of those two. And I just said, I think Landry Breed and Maxwell Riley are a lot alike. I think they have the same type of game. I think they're the same body style. I thought last year Landry was just a little smaller than him, and that may have been why Maxwell Riley got the offer ahead of him. So when we put in this film here, you're going to see a player that really stands out as being big. And, we always say that he's checking all the boxes. He's moving well. I talked to one of the people on the sidelines at the Menor game, and they said, when my son was in college, and I'm not going to say who their son was, he pulled at left tackle all the way to the other side. That's how athletic he was. And it was kind of a brag about his son. He goes, now my son is doing that with Landry, and he's using the same schemes that he used because he was so athletic in the first play of the game, just like a prediction or Nostradamus, who's at left tackle. And he's pulling the kick out on the other side. That's such a long distance to do. And for a 280, 290 pounder to go zipping across the line and make that type of block, it screams, okay, we're looking at something a little different here. So hats off to Ohio State for checking this guy out a second time and revisiting it. I think it was a good move. Dan, that film's ready to pull up. I don't know if we have a commercial before the film or.
No, we're good. I want to make sure everyone understands this. This was from this past weekend. You went out and saw him.
Yes. So we're going to have a few plays here of Landry Breed. We can pause it. But Garrick Hodge, our new guy, was out on the road seeing Jameer Brown, and he's also a part of this video. So if you want to see a play or two of him, we can peek at it or save it for the premium people. But here we go. So Brunswick was an easy match, but it they're a quality Division I program, and Mentor just happened to get a couple interceptions right out of the gate to kind of lopsided score. I love pictures like that when you just see they call it the ragdoll mentality, where like I'm gonna grab a normal human and he's gonna be my Raggedy Ann and Andy here, and I'm gonna carry him around like a little girl.
Pull. There's your pull.
There's your pull from the opposite side. Now, a lot of times when guys do that, they're leading up through to the guard hole, not all the way out the tackle. And then you see how when he locks on to guys, it's just like a woolly mammoth, like he's got that big paws and stuff like that to him where man, just engulfs linebackers. You're going to see some his feet and pass protection here. I'm sure we'll hit pause here in a second, though. Mentor just followed him around, and you like to see how big he is there. There's the kick stepping. So, yeah, Bill, I know you've seen him, and, we're checking a lot of boxes here, and we saw him at camp, but this is part of this business where we can't keep, and I'm going to use this as a lecture or a soapbox. We get so excited about freshmen and sophomores, and when they get offered, we think we have the next coming of the savior. The real homework being done on these seniors is, I think, where the money is going to be made. I think you're getting more information, a more solid projection, a more solid evaluation, and I don't mind taking seniors, although people say, well, we've known about them forever, and why didn't we do it sooner? Let these processes play out. Let 16 and 17-year-olds become men. I saw the comment about my son. He's 15 years old. He doesn't even know how to wake up in the morning and eat breakfast right yet. Like there's certain, as you have kids that are this young, you're like, oh my gosh, Ohio State's offering kids like this that are so young. I feel much more comfortable with these 17, 18-year-olds where there's a much better projection with them.
Also, these are big dudes, and you got to wait for them to grow.
Yeah.
People are growing. Even Mark's son could
grow. Like it's just right. The legs and butts, the things like that you're not even looking at. I mean, I saw Sam Greer's leg and butt. He doesn't look like a basketball player anymore, Dan.
No. He
used to have that basketball player kind of look to him. No, it's gone. It's been erased, and there's no getting that kid back. So I think, and I guess the reason I'm saying is I think people have angst like, oh my God, we have to take a senior that, we waited on the offer late. No. That is the wrong framing of prospects like this. These are the kid last year, Jake Cook, already had his black stripe removed. He's going to be my case in point where waited forever for that kid. There's a hunger associated with that. There's a desire associated with that. And I love kids that have those two traits that are really unmeasurable, that when you see them get an offer senior year, that's usually what it comes down to, their desire.
Bill, this is somewhat current events based. There's a question here about comparing Landry Breed to Micah Smith. That is a relevant question because Micah Smith is an offensive lineman who Ohio State recruited, who committed to UCLA. There's a theme developing here. Can you compare the two? Your thoughts? Where do you think they sit on the depth chart for Ohio State?
Yeah, if you'd asked me that question, say 9 months or a year ago, I would have said, Micah Smith would be my guy over Breed, but I don't know that I'd say that anymore. As Mark mentioned, he's been impressive early this season, and when I say he, I mean Landry Breed. And I think that the added benefit is that Breed is an Ohioan, and you like to keep the Ohioans at home, as you mentioned, Dan. But they're similar in size. They both have the ability, as Mark mentioned with Landry Breed, he's a little bit like Riley. We don't know right now 100% where he's going to play in college. And I don't mean the school-wise, I mean position-wise. Right. Guard or tackle. I think he could possibly play either position. And Micah Smith somewhat the same way, but I've got Breed a little bit above Micah Smith now as far as the comparison. And I want to mention one other thing I saw pop up in this it's a little bit of a story, I guess, about Bo Jackson being the next great running back at Ohio State. Keep in mind how little experience Bo Jackson has at running back. And I'll go back to few years ago. I went to see him play, and I really thought he was going to be a running back in college. And I went home not disappointed with Bo Jackson. I was disappointed. He played, I think, 2 or 3 plays the entire game at running back. It was all safety, linebacker. I think, oh, my goodness. I wanted to see him at running back. The next year I go to see him play. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 plays at running back. Again, I thought that's a little more, but that's a little better, I guess. And then finally, at his senior year, I think it was against Mansfield Senior, he played running back. He rushed for 300+ yards.
They were just saving him for that game, Bill.
I guess. But the moral of the story is he's not like most running backs where they played running back in games for 3, 4, 5+ years. He's got a very little tread on that.
Tread off his tires. Great point. That's a great point, Bill.
At running back, and I think he's only going to get better and better and better.
That goes to the point I was trying to make, where, like, oh, he wasn't great as a sophomore, he must stink. No, wait on this stuff. And that's a perfect point that Bill just backed up with the Landry Breed thing. That Bo Jackson didn't. I remember Bill and I watching games, and the other running back at Villa Angela St. Joe's was running all over the field. We're like, does the coach think this guy's better than Bo Jackson, better than an Ohio State kid? And you walk away, scratching your head. Just give these kids time to develop. I'm just standing on a soapbox for that all the time. You're going to see that as a theme for me in this podcast for years to come. Give guys like me more film. Give roomfuls of guys like me, time to look at these guys and analyze them and debate them, not fire as a 14-year-old freshman. I mean, I think, would we offer in Ohio one kid last year in 2028, Weish from Trotwood Madison? It's not a game you want to play. Just because kids are great freshman year, you got to let things even out.
Couldn't agree more. And keep in mind, the reason Ohio State has been the perennial Big Ten power is because it's located in the state of Ohio. As much as people love international recruiting, it's like Spinal Tap. They recruit the world and elsewhere, which I love too. The basis, the advantage Ohio State has over the rest. Now you can talk about California now that USC is in there and stuff. A little more competition for prospects out in California than there is in Ohio, considering the fact we are the Ohio State. So this is my opinion. This is just my opinion. The people who hop on here immediately after making an offer and start making something on, he's going to go to the MAC, he's going to go to the highest bidder elsewhere. I get that. I just don't think it's based in reality, because just look at the results. The highest paid player in college, I believe, plays for Ohio State. The highest paid defensive player in college plays for Ohio State. Which big-time recruiting battles have they lost that's come back to haunt them? And you're going to lose some. The two that jump out to me, Bill, if you could tell me if I'm wrong here, Dylan Stewart, who is a defensive end at South Carolina. The other big loss they had on the recruiting scene that bothered me tremendously was Caleb Downs. That turned out great. Those are the last two that I was like, this is crushing. This will affect, because I really thought, and I still believe this, had Caleb Downs been there as a freshman, he could have guarded a certain tight end, yada, yada. Bill, what do you feel about that? Do you feel I'm on point there, or am I just a homer?
I think you're on point. And the thing I'll add to that is that with Downs, what made it harder was that Ohio State was so close. I mean,
that's a battle they lost.
They came in second. And it was a close second. I mean, that one could have gone Ohio State's way. So that's kind of why it hurt so much more, is you almost had him. But all's well that ends well, I guess. You got him, and he helped win a national championship. Big help last year, and maybe he does the same thing this year. That's
a great question. I need to go back and look. I'll tell you who's an emerging werewolf and who has I'm about to get hyperbolic on a certain Buckeye. And of course, your soft spot for CT. Oh, I thought I was going to say CT.
As I was thinking about this recruiting, and I'm saying don't early offer kids, there's a whole like warfare to the early offer. Other schools know Ohio State doesn't want to play that game, and they'll fire offers on early kids, trying to get those kids, much like a Landry Breed, like, oh, you've offered me and Ohio State won't, and okay, I'll just commit to you then. You kind of can try to steal a player. NC State was on the verge. But I've also seen a few college coaches that say, I'll offer guys early just to throw some bait out there and get some other schools to see if they'll bite on it and take them when we're not going to take them, but I'll put an offer on them to kind of get that ball started. So there are some weird strategies out there following this with these early offers. Bill, I don't know how many kids Ohio State and some of these other big-time programs offer early that aren't real offers, that are just flat out, we're going to say you have an offer to get you and your handler to come to camp, to get you to come to camp. But if you tried to commit, we probably wouldn't take it. And that's a whole nother world.
Bill, take this for a sec, but I want to bring this up. This has been going on for a long, long time. Mark, I don't know if you remember this. When Louisiana State University offered Cardale Jones, I don't know if people remember this. Cardale Jones and Braxton Miller was like the argument for a long period of time. Which one are we going to take? Who's better? Would anyone be willing to be a second quarterback? LSU jumped in and offered Cardale. I got a phone call from someone who looks a lot like Mark Porter, and he said to me, they don't really want him. They're just trying to get Ohio State to offer him. It worked. Thank you, LSU, by the way. We have a national championship up in the trophy case to show for it. But yeah, this has been going on forever. That's like high stakes chicken. You know what I mean? They're trying to get you to, when you have limited resources, someone tries to push you into using your resources so that you can't then use them on the next guy that comes up. And turns out Ohio State, they'll just all come here and we're going to win the national championship.
Sometimes you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Sometimes these things could backfire on you. And I knew of a lineman that was all hyped up sophomore year, and someone offered him, and then the offers came in, and that person slowly backed away and said, "Thank you for taking him. That's one less for you guys, one more for me." And I was like, are you playing 3D chess? Is that what I just witnessed? Like, there's checkers, there's chess, and then there's some guys that are like twirling their mustaches, with like you're saying, there are places where they don't have anything to lose, so they can do stuff like that. Yeah. Fear of losing out on reverse. Yeah.
I got to give credit to Buck Rational. I was waiting to say that. That's the new, I would say the modern term is blank around and find out. So that dude is on point. He can start hosting the show. So this is the argument that you get. I'll say this. Oregon, to me, this is just my opinion, and I don't think this is outlandish, has become our rival in terms of recruiting and stuff like that. It's not Penn State. It's not Michigan. It's not Alabama's out. Georgia, sort of, but Georgia is like Ohio State on steroids in terms of the in-state choices. Go look at who comes out of Georgia. The fact that they don't win the national championship every year is not a disgrace, but they should. They are producing in Georgia an unnatural amount of talent. And then consider the fact that we have Caden McDonald and Caleb Downs, etc. The Oregon argument is this. I get that we've lost those guys, but what I'm saying is Dylan Stewart, you can't replace Dylan Stewart. The next guy you get's not going to be as good. Caleb Downs, the next guy you get's not going to be as good. The guys that went to Oregon, I don't think that's the case. Now, they're really, really good, but they're not. So the idea of paying guys this early that are big time, it's very simple. Are they going to play? That's it. It's really not that complicated. If you look, can they offer, if you're going to offer the guy who's younger, who's going to come into the room and make more money than older people, he's got to be on the field. Bill, do you think that's an accurate impression of how Ohio State does it? Do you agree with my assessment of the Oregon deal? Your thoughts, Dean?
Yeah, well, I've said this before. When I first heard what the package was for McNutt, I said, "There's no way."
I'm out. Trey McNutt, defensive back out of Ohio, who chose Oregon over Ohio State in the last recruiting cycle.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State is just not going to, even if they see the guy playing day one, and I like McNutt a lot. I mean, I really liked him a lot. He's not Caleb Downs. And even if they see a kid playing right away day one, they're still not going to blow everything totally out of the water while the kid is still in high school. That's just not going to happen. And it causes problems if it does happen. And I can give you an example. Well, I'm not going to give you that example because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but of someone that that has gotten a pretty good amount of money, hasn't worked out, and there's some tension over that a little bit at a school. So you've got to really be careful with that. I just think that Ohio State's got their system. It's a proven system. Keep the guys that you really want first on your roster. They've done a great job of that. And then give out what are, almost in all cases, very fair offers.
Wait till the dean finds out that the new guys are making more than him at Bucknuts. That's going to create all kinds of problems. I mean, just that theory in life.
That news ain't coming. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just that type of theory in life. Like, Dan, there's a new guy. He's going to be making more than you. Like, what is he doing? Is he a wizard? Like the new guy who's making more better come in and be like the LeBron James of Bucknuts or something. But that's how asinine that is. That like the new guy would come in making more than the dean. And just what you guys are saying, if there's a player on the team that's making more than a starter, everybody in the locker room knows who that player is, and they know the exact amount he is stealing every week. Write it down.
Facts.
And they're all saying that money should be going to me. That money he doesn't deserve is why I'm not getting paid. So
guess who else knows? The parents. And guess who they call? The coaches. Okay? There's no different except they're not legal licensed agents. They act the same way, and the lack of licensing probably makes it more difficult to handle. It kind of reminds me of Seinfeld, where George goes into Steinbrenner and gets a raise for his secretary, and she gets a raise to be higher than him. And he's like, the secretary can't make more than the boss. And she's like, apparently they can.
I'm going to give a little analogy that goes back a number of years. In softball, you give out money. Almost no one in softball gets a full scholarship offer. Back a few years ago, before the NIL and all that, even you had to be the ace pitcher or the absolute home run threat every time to even have a chance at that. So you did get percentages. Maybe you get this amount or that amount or that amount. Well, as a parent, I knew what my daughters played college softball. I knew what the other girls were getting money-wise. And I knew that one or two of my daughters was not getting as much, yet far outperforming these people that were. And it was a contention that, as a parent, I didn't like, but I knew about it.
Okay, now that's softball, and the dean is among the more principled individuals walking planet Earth. Now put it in basketball, multiply the money by 10,000, and put it on TV and see how you'd act. A lot of people, and there are people giggling because of me. I was the craziest dad the first time around. If there had been NIL, I may or may not have walked past a person trying to take money from me at a high school basketball game. I'm like, you should be paying me. I shouldn't have said that out loud, but it's true. You start to think that. It's crazy. Now take this on another level, and I go back to this, and I don't want to keep blowing smoke to the Sanchez's. This is why you go after the OKGs, the R kind of guys, the guys who can see the light. I don't care how much these guys are getting as high school, college kids or high school kids coming into college. Go look at how much money the Bosa brothers make. They make more money than some Caribbean countries. I'm not even kidding. That's the real money. The guys going to Ohio State are at the top of the food chain. They should be looking to be making Mark Porter money eventually. You know what I'm saying? They don't need to be thinking small. So I almost to the point now, and I do feel this way about basketball because it's look, if you, for example, if we're in a recruiting battle for a kid and he keeps coming back for every extra dollar, I almost don't think he's good, not good enough. He's just not a great fit. We can get a guy as good for the most part and pay him and he'll come here. There are going to be guys that just are going to go to the highest bidder. I think Ohio State doesn't even get into those recruiting battles from the start. Mark, I think you will end with this. You know, in recruiting, and Bill, you know this, it's not a mystery which families want money from top to bottom. I don't care if you've got $1 billion in the bank or nothing. Some people just want to get paid more. They're going to want every dollar. The people that see it long-term, to me, are the ones you want to invest in. Mark, am I being a Pollyanna here?
That's 100% it. When you said that, I go, let's talk about Micah Parsons. What a, contrast that is. There's a player that was so good, and everyone thought if the Cowboys lost him, they would never be able to win a game again. It would just blow up the whole team. And if the Packers got him, it would change them. And there's players like that you think you have to pay. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes the next best guy isn't that much different. They make it seem like the difference is a mountain when the difference is really this much. Micah Parsons is going to be better than the next guy, but it's not going to be worth the difference between the millions from that guy to Micah Parsons, which destroy your team. And that's, I think, what Jerry Jones just went through. I'm going to operate under that principle where no one player, no matter how good, we can pay. And people, and the reason I bring that up is I know you're a Dallas fan, but there were people on both sides of that issue. I think Green Bay won. I think Dallas was the dumbest team in the world. And I don't know. I think that it'll play itself out when you see who these other players are Dallas gets. But in college football, when you don't have this big salary cap and you have these locker rooms that are a bunch of young kids, you can't screw it up. And you can't have kids being paid that haven't done it yet. I think that's just got to be a golden rule. And the places like Ohio State, it's almost like that scene in Star Wars where they're like, hang on a little more. Like, just resist that urge to pay and you'll be fine. You'll come out there. And if you make a mistake, you can fix it in the portal a couple years later. If you don't pay someone who deserves it, you'll be able to pay him later.
Thoughts, Bill? Get the last word in there.
One of my thoughts is it kind of shows how important all this NIL stuff is, because how many times in the end we end up talking about NIL money, etc., and how important it is in today's college football world. I mean, and I fully believe that kids should be compensated, but the way it's turned out is not the way it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be for buying kids out of high school. It was supposed to be, theoretically, for what they do on the field and getting compensated for that. Unfortunately, it's not that way necessarily.
I'm going to get Buck Rational in here. I'm going to get the last word on this. Yeah, but a kid can't be thinking how great $70 million is versus $10 million when he's in a household with less than $100K income. That's not how it works, though. You're not getting $70 million. It's Ohio State's going to give you 8, and the other place is going to give you 10. If you're choosing that $2 million, okay, versus the chance to make the extra 70. Now, look, most of the guys we're talking about are so good, they're going to make the pros anyway, probably. But the question is, the experience and the track record. Terry McLaurin is the highest paid receiver from Ohio State in the league. He never started here. Think about that. When he got drafted, we were like, man, he's a great gunner. And he makes more than the Redskins should have paid him, but I digress. I'm Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, like this 70 million, 10 million. This is over 50,000 to 100,000. This is over 150 to 200,000, and these families aren't making 100,000. There's that thing where it's real hard to make your first million. The second couple million come a little easier. Okay, but some of these families are trying to get their first 50 or 100,000 in the bank. Some of these families are trying to get out of $20,000 of credit card debt. Some of these families that have a car that might not make it down to Columbus and back without, worry. So when they are offered that 200,000 or 250,000, that extra 50 is still life-changing to them. And I don't think we realize, that each family's financial situation is private, but it's almost public now, because based on their decision making, you're a school, you can prey on that. And I know I know a Buckeye that's committed now that another school preyed on his family's low income and said, "Oh, we know they have low income. We're going to try to blow them away with money right away and appeal to that." And that's real hard for families like that to say no to. To them, it's just a color of a jersey. Is he going to wear scarlet or gray? Is he going to wear red and black? Whatever, whoever pays the most, I don't care. We just need money because, it's a sad state of affairs that a lot of people are in financial dire straits. And we don't talk about that because it's not, public decorum to talk about other people's financial situations. But let's be honest, the college football people who are preying on inner city families and their lack of knowledge about the situation, their lack of financial, acumen. These people don't even have savings accounts. Yeah, they don't have checking accounts. They don't have savings accounts. They're living on EBT and stuff like that. And these college coaches are coming in flashing money. And we think these kids are going to be loyal to a team that's never, we really have to get in the weeds on that a little bit and realize that not every kid is coming from a 2-parent household with $100,000 in cars that are working in a house that's warm. So, just I hate to take the show out on that note, but I'm walking the streets, guys, and boy, you offered some of these kids $100 bill and they might take your hand off. So just know that mentality is the mentality you may have to overcome in this process.
I'll say this. I do think that is not as big of a deal for Ohio State just because of the level of guy they're going after. Like if you look at the guys Ohio State goes after, I think what you're mentioning is very tough. And that's the discussion. You get out of the top 25, 30 teams. The rest of the entire college football is arguing over smaller amounts, kind of go back, get $5,000 from their, to beef it up. But
and I'm so
the Ohio State kids, the guys that Ohio State goes after for the most part. And look, every single recruitment, and Mark can tell you this, so can Bill, is case by case basis. We're speaking generally. Oh, that's great until they get to you. And you're like, those rules for everyone else, those sound great. I'd actually like the extra $50,000. That's how it works. And I get that. I'm just saying the guys that are coming to Ohio State in this current climate, a lot of them, the extreme majority have been studs since they're about 10 years old and have been the guys to get the free Adidas at the camp. I get what you're saying, but that's really, I don't know if Ohio State is at that.
And Ohio State vets out a lot of those problems along the way. Like
you don't have to go after them.
Yeah,
they're not desperate.
Yeah, we're dealing with a lot of both parents were Olympic athletes and both parents ran track and played football. Like you're getting stories from recruits at Ohio State that are very solid, but other places, other schools, and I saw a comment in here and where money is not everything to everybody. I try to live like that, where you try to say do something you love and don't worry about money. But I tell you what, I don't think the rest of the world lives like that. Try to tell it to people that money isn't everything when they don't have any, and this is their first chance to get it. So, I wish we could tell the truth on each story, on what they actually accepted and financial situations, and you would definitely see trend lines forming. It'd be a neat study.
And as you mentioned, Dan, it's case by case. And I'll give you my greatest example. I'm a Cleveland Indians fan. Jose Ramirez loves it in Cleveland. He didn't have to be the highest paid, and he didn't become the highest paid guy. He stayed. He absolutely loves it. Francisco Lindor, on the other hand, he had to be the highest paid guy. he took that, and that's fine for him. He went to the New York Mets. I don't know if he's happy. I just know Jose Ramirez is very happy in Cleveland, and that was the decision for him, not the bottom dollar. But then you have Francisco Lindor on the other hand, who that was really, really important to him, and that's okay. Just two different people.
Las Vegas Buckeyes is making me jealous here. He'll be at the Modern Day Bishop Gorman game. Chris Henry Jr., Keaton Dixon Wyatt, and Jet Washington, basically our receivers out playing. So that'll be
Dan,
great.
did you tell everyone Bucknuts One is taking me and Bill out to California for his last game?
I didn't tell them that because
yet?
I wasn't invited.
We're going to break that on air right now.
Yeah, we should all be so lucky as a Lindor, Bill.
That is not accurate for anybody that is wondering right now.
I thought it was the first weekend it snows in Ohio. We get a trip to California to see Chris Henry. I mean, that's what I thought I saw in the notes.
I'll see what I can do. I'll make a call to a certain deli here where the by the way, the certain deli now has a bar for those of you looking to get a couple drinks at lunch. All right. Now I know we've gone too far because there's other stuff coming up. It might be the longest show we've ever done. Certainly wasn't our intention. Before this gets into some real ugly stuff, let's just sign off. Enjoy. Mark will be out on the road this week. Bill will be attending baseball games with his family, and we'll be all one happy group at the end. Have a good one, Nutters of Buck.